In today's video, we're going to take a look at some 2020 qualifying round NHL playoff predictions. Over the past 5 days, many of our great subscribers have been answering polls through the community tab, answering who they think is going to win all of the opening round qualifying series. We're going to take a look at the results coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're making some playoff predictions, but we're doing it as a community. As the last 5 days here, I've had posts up through the community tab asking everybody for feedback to answer a poll on who's going to win all of the different qualifying round series to get into the 2020 NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs. So essentially we're doing playoff predictions. Like I said, I'll give you my thoughts, and I did a playoff prediction video not too long ago once the format was officially announced. And of course, we'll kind of compare that with these results here and kind of go through it together and see what everybody as a community feels is going to happen once the NHL returns and once these playoff series can get underway. So let's kick things off with the Western Conference. Now, the first series we're going to take a look at today will be the Edmonton Oilers versus the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, an overwhelming response here with a 77% to 23% favor the Edmonton Oilers to win this series, and most likely winning it in maximum of 4 games was what the most of the comments were. Some were 3, some were 5, but obviously with the best of 5 series, I think the average one here had Edmonton winning in approximately 4 games. Now, when I did my playoff prediction video back last week when the format was first introduced and announced, I also picked the Oilers, so I certainly concur with that. The Hawks did give the Oilers a little bit of a hard time during this current regular season before the NHL pause. They did win 2 out of the 3 games, and the Chicago Blackhawks do have a lot of great experience over there. They have some guys that can really kick in their experience and really give the Oilers a good run. If the Hawks get solid goaltending from a guy like Corey Crawford and he gets on a hot streak, I wouldn't completely rule out the Hawks taking this one, but I just think the upstart Oilers are too offensive, and I think they'll at least get by this series. In my other playoff prediction video, I did predict the Oilers to win, and I had them going a couple of rounds deep here in the Stanley Cup playoffs, so I concur with this community result, and overall, like I said, the overwhelming majority feel the Oilers will advance over the Blackhawks. Next up, we'll take a look at the all-Canadian matchup with the Winnipeg Jets doing battle with the Calgary Flames. And we once again had a pretty overwhelming majority here. We had the Winnipeg Jets with 69% of the vote and Calgary only with 31% of the vote. Clearly, many people concur here that the Winnipeg Jets are going to take this series. Again, when I made my prediction video last week, I did also pick the Winnipeg Jets to win. I think the Calgary Flames have a lot of good pieces. There's a lot of things going on. I just haven't seen enough from the Flames when it matters most to expect them to win in this series. Last year in the playoffs, they didn't have a lot of luck. This year in the regular season, they were only okay. Like, there's still another level there, another gear that they can find, and they have yet to find it. I just don't have enough confidence in that young core group just yet, at least, to get that done. And really, I think Connor Hellebuyck of the Jets was arguably the top goalie of the league. I think he should win the Vezina Trophy, in my opinion. And as I've said numerous times, and you all know, as hockey fans, hot goaltending can certainly take a series. And I certainly think as well that the Jets will take down the Flames in this battle of Western Canada. Now, next up, let's take a look at the Nashville Predators doing battle with the Arizona Coyotes. We had a 60-40 split in the vote in this scenario, with the Nashville Predators getting 60% and the Coyotes getting 40%. Now, when I made my predictions last week, I actually picked the Coyotes to upset the Predators, even though the Predators are going to be the higher-ranked team here. Again, another team that, even though they were having an okay regular season, better second half than first half, but still, I just don't have a lot of confidence in that team, and I think a team like Arizona could very well surprise. Even though they struggle to score a lot, Nashville kind of does as well, and with the goaltending that the Coyotes were able to get at times from Darcy Kuemper and Antti Raanta, I just really think there's a good possibility this could be an old-fashioned, strong defensive series where the top goaltender is going to end up taking it, and I can see the possibility that the Coyotes could take this series, but overall, as a community, more of the faith lies with the Nashville Predators. And like I said, they have a 60-40 split in this vote. During regular season play as well, these two teams did split the 2 games that they played. So not a surprise here that it's somewhat close compared to the other series we've seen so far. But like I said, Nashville expected to win according to the majority of you out there watching. Next up, let's look at the final Western Conference series. The Vancouver Canucks doing battle with the Minnesota Wild. Now, this is an overwhelming majority here. This is not even close. We have a big-time win for the Vancouver Canucks with an 87% of the vote going to the Canucks and only 13 going to the Wild. Now, I can't help but wonder if this might be swayed a little bit just for the fact that I think there's probably more Canuck fans that subscribe to this channel than Minnesota fans, but I can't say that with certainty, but that's just a potential thought. But either way, I do agree, and I do think also here that the Canucks will end up coming out victorious in this series. I have a lot of confidence in goaltender Jacob Markstrom. That young core is just too offensive, and I just think Minnesota is not going to have what it takes to beat Vancouver in this qualifying round series. These two teams played 3 times during the regular season, and the Canucks were 1-1 against the Wild. So it certainly shows that the Wild can give the Canucks a bit of a hard time. It kind of depends, really. We saw 2 different versions of the Wild early on. Things were really going not well at all. They did get things turned around in Minnesota after the coaching change, but still, I don't think that the Canucks are going to lose this series. I think there's just too much going on for the good in Vancouver that they'll get into the round of 16 and defeat Minnesota. Now, of course, based on the fact that the top 4 teams are going to be doing a round-robin style that will count for seeding, we don't know who the 4 winners that we just selected will go on to play in the next round, so it's difficult to make predictions beyond this round of the playoffs. So for today, we're just going to be doing a qualifying round series. I think what we'll do next is look for some posts in the community tab where I'll be asking you to predict who's going to win in those round-robin tournaments and determine who we feel the top 4 seeds are going to be, what order they'll finish in, and then we can make further predictions after that for the later rounds and get to the point where, as a community, we can decide who we feel is going to win the Stanley Cup. Now let's jump over and take a look at our predictions now for the Eastern Conference. First up, let's take a look at the Pittsburgh Penguins doing battle with the Montreal Canadiens in the 5-12 series. Now, in this scenario, the Pittsburgh Penguins did have a pretty overwhelming majority here, 66-34%. Obviously, this is a pretty one-sided affair, I think. Majority feel Pittsburgh will win. Based on the comments on this post, many felt it would either be 3 straight or maybe 4 games at most. So not a lot of confidence in Montreal compared to Pittsburgh out there. But I will say this, based on the fact that Montreal might have some X factors here, and they could have some that's positive and some not so positive. Given the fact that Carey Price is such a strong goaltender, has a lot of experience. If he gets on a hot run and can outduel the Penguins goalie, whether it be Jerry or Murray, then you know what? Maybe, just maybe, Montreal will stand more of a chance. But the other thing here that could be a big factor in this play-in series is that Montreal is not guaranteed to have Max Domi. Of course, as many of you know, Max Domi is a type 1 diabetic, and because of that, he's at an increased risk for the COVID-19 to have much more of a serious impact on him. And there is a possibility that it might not be deemed safe enough for him to play. There could be some players like him that end up sitting out if they have underlying medical issues. Marc Bergevin has indicated before here that if it's determined that it's too risky for Domi to play, that he won't be playing in these playoffs qualifying series. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, obviously we don't know if how that's going to go yet, but if they don't have Domi, that is going to be a big factor. But at the same time, like I said, on the other side of the coin, Price could be an X factor there as well. But the Penguins just have too much going on for the good, although they will be without a key few players. They're going to be without Dominic Simone and Nick Bjugstad. Both players are expected to be out for quite an extended period of time. So even if it goes into August before these teams play, they will not be at a point where they're able to join the lineup. But they should have one of their top scorers in Jake Gensel return to the team and certainly be in good shape that way. So for the most part, the Montreal Canadiens probably will be the healthier team of the two. But at the same time, the Penguins appear to be the stronger team and have more of the support in this poll. Now next up, let's take a look at the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Columbus Blue Jackets. This one was actually pretty close, a lot closer than I expected, with a 55% victory going to the Leafs and a 45% support for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So obviously many people felt the Leafs would win, but not by a lot that it's going to be a close checking series, and I also agree with that. I picked the Leafs to win in my prediction video back a week ago, but at the same time, I don't think they're going to win very easily. The Columbus Blue Jackets have a really strong blue line. They've gotten some great goaltending this past year from Merzlikins as well as Korpisalo. They very well might even outduel the Leafs defenders on the defensive side of the game and even goaltending. Freddie Anderson's a great goalie for the Leafs, but you never know. I mean, he's had his falters in the playoffs, and there's no guarantee that he would be the better of the bunch here between the guys in Columbus. So I think Columbus would give Toronto a good go, but at the end of the day, I think the Leafs' offensive power in the forward position is just going to be too much, and they will squeak out a victory here, but I don't think it's going to be by a lot. I could see it going 4 or 5 games right to the wire, all games being close, at least that's in my opinion. During regular season play, they played 2 games. They split 1 victory apiece, and it was close scoring as well. So these 2 teams do appear to be fairly closely matched, and I've seen many other people out there making predictions kind of indicating the same kind of thought process that Toronto should win theoretically, but at the same time, no guarantees that it's going to be really close. And at the same time, though, we saw Columbus upset the Tampa Bay Lightning last year. Can they do it again except to the Leafs this time? Well, 45% of the voters think that's a possibility, but 55% think Toronto will prevail. Next up, let's take a look at the New York Rangers doing battle with the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, when I made my prediction video, I picked the Hurricanes, but I picked it as an upset because, as we know, every year in the playoffs, there's always series that don't go the way we think we will. And even though Carolina would be the higher-ranked team here, I do think that if they were to beat the Rangers, we do have reason to say that it could be an upset. For starters, these teams played 4 games during the regular season this year, and the Rangers won all 4. Carolina's had their hands full with the Rangers all season long, and clearly these teams are not as closely matched as one might think. Now, Carolina, though, at the same time, had a deep playoff run last year. They got a lot of valuable experience, and they very well might come back from this NHL pause a little bit healthier. They had a really severely banged up blue line going into the pause. My understanding is a lot of those blue liners are much more healthy now. They may not have a full complement of guys back that they were out injured, but a lot of them should be able to return, and that certainly will go a long way to helping Carolina be a stronger team. And of course, goaltending is an X factor as well. If you get a guy like Igor Shesterkin who gets an opportunity to start and he gets on a roll, then the Hurricanes are going to have their hands full. Or would they turn to Henrik Lundqvist, the experienced guy on the team? Do they go to Georgiev? I don't know who they go to. My money would be on going to Shesterkin because that seemed to be the go-to guy throughout most of the year once he came up. But the Rangers had a 58 to 42% vote edge here in the poll, and clearly many people think the Rangers have an edge. And like I said, even though I do agree with that, and if any of these series that I made predictions on last week, I was willing to maybe change my mind on, this one would be the one. But my thought process going into that was that I just feel like there's bound to be the odd series that just goes differently than most people think. And I just thought with everything happened to Carolina last year in the playoffs that we could see some magic again, and they might be able to go on another run for at least a couple of rounds to see what they can do. But majority of you feel the Rangers are going to win this series. Now, the last series for us to take a look at is the New York Islanders versus the Florida Panthers, and this pretty well overwhelming majority here felt that the Islanders would come out victorious with a 63 to 37 edge in the poll voting. Now, the Islanders also handled the Panthers relatively well during the regular season this year as well. So based on the vote, based on the regular season play, you would think the Islanders would have an edge here. And for the most part, I would agree with that. In my prediction video last week, I did pick the Panthers to win. But again, I also predicted this as an upset because I said the hot goaltending can win a series. And even though the Islanders appear to be the better team, they've been a better team all season long, I just thought there was a good chance that we could see goalie Sergei Bobrovsky get on a hot run like he did after the first game of the playoffs last year with the Blue Jackets. And he was a big part of the reason why they were able to take down Tampa Bay. And I felt he could possibly do it again and help them get past the New York Islanders. Really, his level of play is a big part of the reason why the team didn't have a better regular season. I do think there's some other issues on the team too, but Bobrovsky's play certainly played a large role in their lack of success during this year's regular season. And if he can get on a hot stretch, well, the Islanders very well could find themselves in trouble. But theoretically, if you look at the teams on paper, how they did this year, the Islanders would be the favorite team to win. They've handled them well in the regular season, and many of you out there, majority at least, feel the Islanders should go on to win this series. Now, of course, as I mentioned, we don't know the 4 teams from the East and how these matchups will go into the next round. So we'll once again be doing some polls on the community tab, getting everybody's thoughts and opinions to make some predictions on how that seeding will turn out once those 4 teams hold their round robins. And then once we know what everybody's thoughts are, we can do the next round predictions and so forth and kind of go from there. Clearly, there's a lot at stake for some of these teams in the qualifying round, whether or not they move on to the round of 16, end up in the draft lottery. There's certainly a different feel going on this year. We could see some very different things that we never expected before the NHL season was on pause. So, of course, as always, if you didn't participate in the polls that led to making this video, certainly let me know your thoughts and opinions on these predictions down in the comments, and we can continue discussing further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.